Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel for another review and painting guide. Today we're going to be tackling some 1/72 scale miniatures. These are US Infantry by Italeri. They are going to be a perfect little matchup for my already painted 1/72 scale Germans. So that'll give these guys something to fight. That'll be nice. Here they are on this little piece of cardboard. I just stuck them all down there. Everything's been in storage for a while, so nice to break them back out and take a look at everything with some fresh eyes. What we're going to do first is review the set, and then we'll go into the painting guide. But first, I want to say a quick thank you to everyone for watching the video. If you have not, please like the video. That will go a long way to boosting it and getting in front of people who will appreciate it, just like you. And consider subscribing. All right, let's get back into the video. I really like this box. It's got a nice big full art illustration on the front. Fun little War Games approved stamp here. The Italeri logo is really nice. I really like it. Tells you exactly what's in here, as well as the model number and the scale. This is just great as a paint reference too, if like you just don't want to go online and find a reference or don't have any books handy. It's got a lot of energy and movement to it, and it just seems really fun. You get a sort of a look at all the poses that are included, which is nice. On the side, this is a look at what is included, all of the actual poses. There's 36 times 3 poses. They are on, basically what you see it on here is on a sprue. So you get 3 sprues that contain all of these figures. One side has just a smaller graphic of the illustration. This one is a vertical side. I bought this used, so it came a little damaged. On the back, you've got 2 great illustrations of figures, painting guide, some details about what's in the box, as well as the production date. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple, straightforward. And now let's look at what's inside. So opening up here from the side, I did buy these used, as I mentioned. There were 3 inside. I've already got the one painted. I'm shooting this after the fact because it makes more sense for my brain. But you get 3 of these, and you can see on this one, this is an unclipped version. They come on sprue, and they have these little nibs, like these little flashings on them. I clipped all those off. You'll see me do that in the cleanup portion of the video. And other than that, it's pretty straightforward. There's really minimal mold line cleanup and flashing on here other than these. Like you get the little flashing that sticks to whenever you don't clip off, and you got to do a little bit of cleanup on those. But other than that, they're really detailed sculpts. So let's zoom in here and look a little bit closer. Now, I'm not a military expert per se, but I do know what most things are. Like I know this is a mortar and this is the stand for it. And you can kind of tell that this is he looks like he's part of a tank crew. I have a good idea of what the weapons are in general. Like this guy's carrying an ammo crate. This guy down here he's on the phone, which is pretty cool. So just kind of going through them by one. This guy's actually got he's got a machine gun, but it's not attached. So you have his hand over here. So he's got a little hole for the machine gun. You just sort of plop it in there. You can probably glue it and it'll stick great. There's some figures that just have nothing in their hand. It looks like they could be holding something, or they're supposed to be holding something. I believe he's supposed to be feeding this machine gun with ammunition. So if we look at the box, I believe these two fellas on the front here are meant to be these 2 guys on the sprue. Even though there's no like chain of ammo that gets fed into the gun, I guess you can sort of imagine it, right? This guy is a mortar guy. You can see the mortar crew back here on the box. I believe he's supposed to be maybe grabbing for a mortar. I'm not really sure what he's supposed to be doing with his hand. But you've got just generally infantry as well, some walking poses. Looks like this guy's looking back. This guy's firing similar to the guy on the front, except he's got it more firing from the hip, and on the box he's actually looking down the sight. Another walking pose, very similar poses, but this guy's shooting his 9mm. Let me know in the comments, is this meant to be a Browning? What is this weapon specifically? Here's another guy carrying ammunition, guy on his knees looking like he's maybe looking over a low wall or over some bush. Another guy in like a ready pose, another walking troop. Like I said, the guy on the phone, he looks pretty great. This looks like he's probably an officer because he's got the Thompson and he may be issuing commands. This guy specifically, he looks like he might be looking at something in more detail. Let's see if we can zoom in. I don't know what this is supposed to be that he's holding. It's certainly not a grenade, but it looks like he's holding some sort of a bauble or trinket or something and admiring it in the light. I'm not really sure what's happening with this pose specifically. I thought it was pretty interesting, but there's no detail on the hand to really know. And there's no indication of what it is in the box. Maybe he's supposed to be with the mortar crew. There's also this guy carrying the bazooka and reaching back in his backpack. I like that detail of reaching back. I think that's kind of neat. It's different, it's very different than what you normally see a bazooka wielding troop like doing. So he's just sort of walking, maybe going to get set up to take out a tank from cover or something like that. The backs are also really highly detailed. We've got some figures with backpacks. They pretty much all have canteens on them, which is cool. Some have backpacks, like I said, and the detailing overall with the the fabric is really high quality. And you'll see me, what I do is I use a wash in the painting process to pull out those shadows and recesses of all the various fabric cloths. I think those are so small and highly detailed that the wash does a great job of bringing them back up and making them more visible after you've painted them all. So that's like a last step kind of thing before you do any final highlights. So yeah, these are really cool. I haven't clipped my final ones. I'll give you a quick look at where we're going with this. So here's a quick peek at where we're headed with this. This is the sprue that we start with, and then here on the right is what the final version looks like painted up. Now, I could push these details infinitely and work on this forever. That's sort of my crux with painting, is I can keep pushing things further and further, but eventually, you have to call it quits. And at this size, I think these are perfect, especially on the tabletop. And quickly comparing them, how I painted the Germans, I think they're a real step up in quality. I mean, I really love how these Germans turned out, but the method and process for painting the US Infantry that I undertook for this video, I think it is just a lot more efficient and yields in a better result. Woo. All right, let's get into the painting tutorial. So the very first thing I'm going to do is grab my clippers and get to work clipping off all these little nibs. Then I'm going to break out my little hobby blade and I'm going to clean up all the little flashing that still remains from where those little nibs were clipped off. And once they're all clipped and cleaned up, we're going to head outside and spray paint them with black and US olive drab. All right, so this isn't always easy to film, but what you're going to see me do is essentially spray down on all these guys to create a zenithal prime with olive drab, and that'll give them like a nice gradient from light to dark. Cool. So what you'll see here is that I've set this up sort of in a vertical way, and I'm going to shoot straight down with the can, and we'll see how it goes. It's probably just going to blow this thing over. But here I've got my US olive drab, danger, and then just going to shoot it straight from the top down. Perfect. Now that they're all nice and primed, I'm going to paint all the exposed areas of flesh with beige red using a number 0 brush. The next thing I did was paint all of the pants with barbarian skin. I realized that it was a little too close in color to the jacket color I was going to be using, which is khaki, so I decided to go over it with a bit of field drab and a glaze consistency, but that was still too light, so then later on you'll see me go over it with an umber wash to tone everything down. Next, I used Vallejo khaki on all of the jackets. At first I was careful not to paint over the straps and pouches, but then realized I was just going to be painting them over with a lighter color anyway, and decided to be a bit more free and a little less precise at this step. Now, I could have left all the straps and pouches the US olive drab color and they would have looked great, but I went over them with Vallejo dark sand because I totally forgot that these are not paratroopers and they're actually US infantry. The paratroopers had lighter straps and pouches. That's what I was used to painting, so I was just in that mindset, and I should have referenced the box art a bit closer to realize that I didn't have to paint them this much. Next, I used Vallejo red leather to paint all of the rifle straps, the gun holsters, and the boots. I gave all the boot coverings a little tickle of German beige World War II, and it just a light application over top, nothing crazy. I just wanted a little highlight on the folds of the fabric. I think it turned out pretty cool. It was simple, it was effective. And not only that, it was really quick. Here's a real quick look at how I used field drab with a glaze consistency to tone down the pants a bit more. I still wasn't happy with how dark they were looking compared to previous miniatures I had painted, so I will eventually go in and add that umber wash to a lot of them, but you kind of get a sense for the process. I used Vallejo flat brown for all of the wood parts of the various gun pieces. For all of the exposed areas of metal, I used Vallejo charcoal. I used a sepia wash over all of the exposed areas of flesh and then went over top of that with a bit more beige red to bring up the highlights again. So as is tradition with all of my painting, I let the intrusive thoughts take over and I decided to paint this entire figure with this sepia wash. When it was all dried, it didn't look too bad, but as I was applying it, I thought it looked way too orange and I got pretty upset with myself. I was able to correct it with the umber wash at the end and some more highlights overall,
But it was, I figured to myself, let's just try it and see how it looks. And I wish I hadn't, because it just ended up taking a bunch more time. So, don't be afraid to experiment as long as you aren't afraid of having to correct everything.
During editing, I realized I did not paint this little guy, so I'm going to do that real fast. Now comes time to use the wash. I'm using a Vallejo Umber wash. It's a little bit darker than the sepia wash that I originally tried. And I'm just going to paint it over all the jackets and very lightly over the pants, and really trying to push it into the recesses so that when it dries, it pulls into those deeper areas. And then I'm going to go over that with additional highlights of the original color. And then it's just going to create more contrast between the darks and the lights. And that'll be it. We'll be done. I think it looks really awesome. Excited to show you. And with that, there's nothing more to do but to clip these guys off the sprue.